Imagine a 3-foot-long, 13-pound iron rod being blasted entirely through your skull, entering under your cheek and exiting out the top of your head. In 1848, medical science said you'd be dead before you hit the ground. But one man didn't just survive it. He sat up, spoke to his doctor, and lived for another 12 years. His name was Phineas Gage, and his horrific accident changed everything we know about the human mind, personality, and the brain. This is the story of history's most famous medical marvel, a story of an impossible survival, a terrifying personality transformation, and the birth of modern neuroscience. To understand the tragedy, we have to travel back to September 13th, 1848, in the quiet town of Cavendish, Vermont. Phineas Gage was a 25-year-old construction foreman for the Rutland and Burlington Railroad. Gage wasn't just any laborer. He was highly capable, efficient, and deeply respected by his men. His employers called him the most efficient foreman in their employ, possessing an iron mind and an equally well-balanced body. In an era when railroad construction was one of the most dangerous jobs in America, trust was everything. Supervisors needed men who could make quick decisions and keep crews alive around explosives. Gage earned that trust through discipline, experience, and a reputation for staying calm under pressure, even in hazardous conditions. His job was highly dangerous, clearing away massive boulders using gunpowder. To do this, he used a custom-made tool, a 3-foot, 7-inch tamping iron, tapered at the end, weighing over 13 pounds. It was his prized possession. Little did he know, it would soon define his legacy. The process was precise. Pour the powder, pour the sand on top to prevent sparks, and use the iron rod to tamp it down. But at 4:30 p.m., distraction struck. Someone called out Gage's name from behind. Gage turned his head over his right shoulder to respond. Crucially, the sand had not yet been poured. The iron rod scraped the bare rock, creating a catastrophic spark. It ignited the powder. The blast turned the 13-pound tamping iron into a supersonic missile, penetrating the frontal lobe of his brain and rocketed out the top of his skull. The rod landed over 80 feet away, smeared with blood and brain tissue. Gage was thrown violently to the ground. Anyone else would have died instantly. But within minutes, Phineas Gage did the unthinkable. He spoke. He walked with minimal assistance, sat upright in an ox cart, and rode a mile back to his hotel. When the local physician, Dr. Edward Williams, arrived, he couldn't believe his eyes. Gage looked at him and casually said, "Doctor, here is business enough for you." Shortly after, Dr. John Martin Harlow took over the case. Harlow noted that Gage was completely conscious, listing his symptoms, bleeding from the top of his head. Against all odds,
Despite a massive brain infection that put him in a semi-comatose state for weeks, Gage's young, resilient body fought back. By November, less than 2 months after the accident, he was walking around the town. The townspeople were astonished by his recovery. Many expected him to die within days, yet he continued to regain strength. Newspapers and doctors across the region became fascinated by the case. Few injuries of this magnitude had ever been documented, and even fewer had resulted in survival. But while his body healed, something else was fundamentally broken. The physical wound had closed, but the man inside was gone. Dr. Harlow famously noted the profound change in Gage's personality. Before the accident, Gage was responsible, polite, and smart. Afterward, he was erratic, irreverent, and prone to the grossest profanity. He showed little deference for his peers and became impatient and obstinate. His friends and coworkers shook their heads and said the ultimate truth. He was no longer Gage. Because of his unstable behavior, the railroad refused to give him his job back. He became a drifter. He worked at P.T. Barnum's museum in New York, exhibiting himself and his iron rod. Later, he traveled to Chile to work as a long-distance stagecoach driver, a job that required routine and focus, which scientists believe actually helped rehabilitate his brain over time. In 1860, Gage's health began to fail as he developed severe epileptic seizures, a common long-term result of brain trauma. He passed away on May 21, 1860, at the age of 36. But his death was just the beginning of his contribution to mankind. In the mid-19th century, scientists believed the brain was a single, undifferentiated organ. Or worse, they believed in phrenology, the study of bumps on the skull. Gage proved that specific parts of the brain control specific functions. His injury proved for the very first time that the frontal lobe is the command center for personality, ethics, and future planning. Modern researchers have repeatedly revisited Gage's case using advanced computer modeling and digital reconstructions of his skull. While some details of his behavioral changes remain debated, scientists broadly agree that the injury damaged networks involved in decision-making, emotional regulation, and social judgment, making his case a cornerstone of neuroscience education. Phineas Gage lived a tragic, disrupted life, but by surviving the impossible, he handed science the key to understanding the human mind. He remains history's most important and most resilient medical miracle.